Poetry, it just became more aggressive, more energetic, more oral. I grew up at the same time as rock and roll grew up, so rock and roll became was a great part of my vocabulary and our cultural voice, and I just merged my poetry with what I knew best was rock and roll. But to this day, I wouldn't call myself a musician. I would say I was a performer, but I have two kids who actually are musicians who remind me that I'm not a musician quite often.
How old are they?
My kids are 27 and 22.
Mm-hmm. I bet everyone in this audience wishes they weren't a musician like you're not. But who influenced you most as you came to New York?
Well, I mean, I had a plethora of influences. I mean, one of my earliest influences was Jo March in Little Women, you know, because there was she was a writer, a tomboy. She went out to help her family, and she was probably my first real role model, and that followed with all kinds of people. Lotta Lenya, Bob Dylan was a very important influence. Joan Baez was very important, and John Coltrane, and I just, you know, there's so many artists and poets and musicians and activists that I've drawn inspiration from. That to me is one of the great parts of life, is all the work of other people and how it influences and inspires us.
And your latest book, Just Kids, it chronicles your friendship with Robert Mapplethorpe, the great artist. Can you talk about your friendship with Mapplethorpe over 22 years?
Well, I met Robert in 1967. Again, you know, I came to New York with nothing. I had a lot of bravado. I had a few dollars in my pocket, but I had a good work ethic. I knew I wanted a job, and that's what I was looking for. And I also didn't feel any fear in New York City. I really loved New York. I was brought up in a very rural community, and we didn't have cars. The roads were dark. There was nowhere to go. You'd have to walk like 4 or 5 miles to, you know, go to a pizza place. And, you know, New York, where everything was right there, there was all kinds of places to get coffee. You could sleep on the subway. You know, it seemed like the safest place in the world. So, and in the middle of this atmosphere, I met Robert quite accidentally. And we were both we were more alike than not. We were the same age. Both wanted to be artists. Both had nothing. And both sort of on the fringe of things. You know, both of us were more the late bloomer type. And, you know, despite the fact that Robert was, you know, had a very engaging face, he was still sort of a wallflower, a person on the fringe, even in an art school. So we gravitated toward each other and supported each other and evolved together and went through all kinds of things, you know, from, you know, Robert discovering or coming to terms with his evolving sexual identity to becoming a photographer, me evolving from poetry into rock and roll, and we evolved together.
And he took the iconic photograph of you on the cover of your first album?
Yeah, he did. He did. And we did that just like we did everything else. Our relationship was built on trust. And, you know, sometimes people ask me about how we took this picture like it was some big drama. Like, now you get your picture taken, and the photo shoot that you'd think they were doing a movie. There's like catering and, you know, 4 monitors and a bunch of, you know, people running. It's like a Peter Sellers movie, you know. And really, it was just me and Robert, you know, in a white room and with natural light. And in fact, his light meter was broken, so it was just, he took 12 shots and we got it.
You know, the geography of this city tells so many stories, and Democracy Now! Has just moved from this 100-year-old firehouse. Our dear friends, who could think you're calling your landlords your friends, but Keiko Tsuno and John Alpert, I hope they're here tonight. I'm not sure if they are, but really embraced us and protected us until we outgrew this firehouse because they were growing as well, Downtown Community Media Center. And so we ended up here in Chelsea, just around the corner from the Chelsea Hotel. Yes. So talk about 1969 and you and Robert going there.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that there's nothing better than to be able to say that you had to move because democracy was growing. So, Robert and I were both, we went through a lot of different things, and in 1969 we were a bit down on our luck, and we had heard that if you went to the Chelsea Hotel, they would often trade art for a room. And we went to the Chelsea Hotel, and I checked out the lobby, and the stuff was pretty bad, and I thought, oh, we won't have any problem. But Mr. Bard was not really interested in our work, but he was interested in the fact that I had employment, which was something that probably 70% of the people of the hotel did not have. Who was there at the time? Well, the first person we met in the lobby was Harry Smith, who was definitely not employed. And, but we saw all kinds of people there. I mean, there was a lot of artists and writers. Virgil Thompson lived there. I'd say Shirley Clark. I saw Jonas Mekas there a lot, and Allen Ginsberg, and just about, I mean, we could go on with lists of people. Even Arthur C. Clarke lived there, you know, so I talked Mr. Bard into, you know, letting us have a room based on the fact that I had a job. We had the smallest room in the hotel, which doesn't even exist anymore. It had no bathroom. It was $55 a week, and I made $65 at Scribner's bookstore. So that pretty much could say what our living situation was. But it was really a great stroke of luck to move it to Chelsea, because the people that we met there, Gregory Corso and William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg, I met Bobby Newworth and so many musicians, people you never heard of, and people who, you know, we all revere. And I think I said it in the book, but it's true. It became my new university. I couldn't think of a better place to be at the time, because I learned so much about everything, about painting and poetry, performance, activism, all in this one hotel.
2 years later, 1971, talk about putting poetry to music.
Well, sorry. Well, I had my first poetry reading. It was on Bertolt Brecht's birthday, February 10th, 1971. It was a full moon. I was opening up Gerard Malanga and at St. Mark's Church. And of course, St. Mark's Church was the, you know, the Mecca for poets at the time. And it was quite an honor to get 18 minutes at St. Mark's Church. So I really wanted to do something special. And also, I knew Gregory Corso really good, and he would really harass you if you were boring. I mean, he would sit in the back, way back there, and if you were boring, you could hear him all the way from back there letting you know that you were really boring. And so I asked Lenny Kaye to play some interpretive electric guitar, a little feedback to some of, to certain of the poems. And I didn't think much about it. I just thought, you know, it was sort of like Kerouac and Steve Allen playing together. It's just only with electric guitar. But it seemed to cause a bit of a stir. And I guess that's how it began. Still stirring.
Patti Smith singing and speaking before a Democracy Now! Studio audience on Monday night. Stay with us.